All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Cronin Finalist Webinar Series. Each year, NASPO hosts this webinar series to recognize states who've submitted outstanding state procurement initiatives that are recognized at our annual conference each year. The George Cronin Awards program seeks to recognize these initiatives by encouraging adoption of these programs and projects in other states. Submissions for these awards are scored based on 4 criteria. Those are innovation, transferability, service improvement, and cost reduction. By filling in these key areas, the Cronin Awards and their finalists help create opportunities for improving the procurement profession nationwide. This webinar series is an important part of sharing these ideas, so I want to thank all of you for joining us today. So before we get started, I want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on our YouTube channel that's on our website within the next couple of days. And because we're recording, I've muted everybody, but if you have a question, there will be a Q&A time at the end of the presentation. And if you look on your screen, there's a Q&A tab at the bottom. If you click on that, you can submit your questions throughout the presentation at any time, and I will address those questions during the Q&A section at the end. For those of you that would like to receive UPPCC certification credit for attending this webinar, you can email me, Stephanie Schlueter, at sschlueter@naspo.org, and I'll put that in the chat section that'll pop up on your screen as well. So just email me and I'd be happy to send you a certificate. So now I would like to introduce our speaker today, Patricia Burke. Patricia is a municipal account manager for the local government enablement team for the Operational Services Division for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And today, she will be speaking on her state's submission on local government enablement. All right, Patricia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, everybody. Good afternoon. And thank you for your interest to learn more about our work in the Commonwealth. So just a little bit of background, as Stephanie said, I'm part of the Operational Services Division at the Commonwealth. We are an oversight agency and part of the Executive Office for Administration and Finance. Our mission, our passion is to encourage both government and business to meet, collaborate for more efficient procurement, business growth, and vendor diversity. Local government is one of 10 units within OSD. In many ways, we get to be the proud face unit to our outreach, with about 100 employees or 100 teammates standing alongside of us. So you can see the diverse range of services and departments that OSD has. So just a little bit of history here. It was back in 2014 that leadership at OSD decided that we would be moving forward into the next generation of systems and tools. At that time, an e-procurement system was determined to be the direction we would take, so we introduced Combi. Initially, it was for use by executive agencies only, and at that time, it would be replacing a then 20-year-old system, which was primarily bid solicitation and posting, and really was not full end-to-end procurement. And what you see on screen is just the landing page of the application that a typical buyer would see when they first log in. Again, Operational Services Division leadership recognized that while this would be a great tool and would be used by primarily executive agencies, there was a market opportunity to introduce and encourage local governments to participate in the many goods and services that we had to offer them. Our goals were simple. We were looking to increase statewide contract revenue utilization, and to do so through one system that would provide access to more than 100 contracts for in excess of $1.5 million goods and services, so that one primary place to do end-to-end purchasing and procurement. The system would support a vendor community, an awarded vendor community in excess of 1,000, so about 1,200 awarded vendors are on contract. The system is very flexible to allow unique and customized workflows, offering greater transparency to how decisions are being made within the local government and executive agency, as well as, of course, e-procurement, digital record keeping, etc. Over time, the system expanded to also include access to state-funded grants, which is another nice place for local communities to respond to grants that might be out there for them. And here's the map of the Commonwealth, as you see on your screen. So in order to address that new market beyond executive agencies, the concept of a local government team was established. We would soon become brand ambassadors for not just Combines, but really OSD and the entire portfolio of services that we had to offer. Our approach would always be client-centric, individualized, consultative in nature, and very customized. Leadership at OSD provided the very necessary investments in our infrastructure to include essential training organizations, help desk, operations, all of the key parties that would ensure our shared success. The role became very fluid and dynamic, and we went into it with very modest goals, and we just wanted communities to sign up to be able to access this new system. They were skeptical, of course. They were familiar with a 20-year-old system, and so there was a lot of initial skepticism and a bit of kind of waiting on the sidelines, seeing what happened. But we realized quickly that in order to achieve success to our goal, we had to learn this system inside and out to become an application specialist. Additionally, become a project manager for each and every community that we were servicing, offer insightful business process redesign recommendations, leveraging best practices, what we were seeing across the Commonwealth, and really being a trusted partner to these folks. We were, quickly became or established credibility in this community as having a fair degree of procurement expertise. Ultimately, we also become the liaison back to OSD. So we have a great community of professional buyers that are asking questions and provide recommendations and suggestions. So we manage those relationships kind of end to end. So who are the clients, if you will? So essentially in the Commonwealth, there are 351 cities and towns, and they were our initial footprint. You can see a heat map to your right, and this is just a quick screenshot of, in this particular case, this is fiscal year-to-date revenue for contract utilization. And so you can see there's a nice distribution of business that's being conducted across the Commonwealth. And again, this is expressly municipal business. But beyond cities and towns, we have county governments, we have local and regional school districts, housing authorities, what we refer to as the eligible, so public colleges and universities. So our footprint is ever expanding. So plus, plus, plus. We definitely will endeavor to help all public purchasing officials as they seek our support. Our go-to-market strategy would be, so we have a team manager, Eric Murphy, and I work alongside with 2 colleagues. So there are 3 of us out in the field Monday through Thursday, working with our communities, and then Eric supports us from an administrative and management perspective. So essentially, we took the map and divided it up, and each of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth have a dedicated local government manager, which is awesome. We realized that in order to be that party that would come in and introduce a new system that would ultimately transform how they did business, we would need executive buy-in. We would need both partnership as well as endorsement and collaboration from the decision makers. So in this world, it's the mayors, the town administrators, chief procurement, as well as those department heads who manage some of the larger budgets, those folks that are influencers in terms of what gets purchased and what gets done in the community. So establishing those relationships, became critical to our success. Again, all of our meetings, we work intensely, face-to-face, documenting everything, a very, rigorous, proven strategy at this point, 5 years in. It works like a champion. And again, the success is based on the leadership endorsement and a real commitment to modernize and automate procurement measures. Post-end user training, so after our initial training team comes in and does the preliminary trainings, the LGE team will continue to provide one-on-one post-end user training, monthly check-in meetings, and again, ensuring that we're transforming not just the practices, but the behavior of how folks approach their buying responsibilities, if you will. We needed a bit of a toolbox, as you can imagine. So our marketing team, thankfully, developed a fantastic prospectus that outlines our process, what our deliverables, our approach, our strategy. The statewide contract reference guide, we affectionately, internally only refer to it as our cheat sheet. In government, we don't cheat at anything, but we affectionately call it that because it really has become probably the single most used document, that our group relies upon, and it is a comprehensive listing of all of our contracts that are available to our clients. We also do further customization, again, that personalization of those desk side resources, leave behinds in the form of instructions, job aids, quick reference guides, etc., that are very unique and specific to that town, that community, and how they do business. Our marketing team also supports our outbound communication through flyers, newsletters, things of that nature. So we're very proactive in making sure that we are at the forefront of our municipal buyers' mind. Here's the example of our little cheat sheet. It's our statewide contract quick reference guide, if you will, and 14 categories of goods and services. As I mentioned, approximately 107 contracts, 1,200 awarded vendors. So many, many solutions for our municipal buyer. Again, just continuing to realize that, the initial goals may have been modest, but over time you have this burgeoning group of accounts that you need to properly manage. So about 18 months ago, leadership at OSD made an additional investment in a CRM tool that has really become one of the pillars of how we manage our business. Our marketing team uses it for, analytics, targeted marketing, outbound communication. Internally, the LGE team uses Sugar to ensure that we're monitoring and tracking results, opportunities, following up with our clients. So it really has been a wonderful tool for us. Again, this might be going a little old school, but this is a great example, I feel, of some of that outbound communication. So our marketing team, we release a monthly newsletter, and it's a nice compilation for our municipal buyer to have one source to learn, what are the trainings coming up, what is my peer group doing across the Commonwealth, successes, opportunities, new contracts. We actively solicit the feedback and participation from both executive agency as well as municipal clients to help us craft our future contracts, things of that nature. So we're very collaborative in that regard. This newsletter is distributed electronically to more than 10,000 recipients, and again, it's a single resource of very valuable information for the municipal buyer. This is just a little screenshot of, just again, the heat map of activity across the Commonwealth, et cetera. But the numbers bear out that we are being very successful in the transformation of the business processes amongst many municipalities. We have 96% of cities and towns now are registered and have access to combis, which is fantastic. And in virtually every category, we've had year-over-year exponential growth, both in the purchase orders being placed through combis, sales revenue from statewide contracts increasing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, it's a daily continued focus to make sure that the adoption sticks, the behavior is is changed, if you will, and buyers move forward with greater efficiency, greater transparency, saving money, working with more vendors, etc. This is the data that you may have seen close to a year ago with regard to the Cronin Awards, if you will. So these are the annual statistics, be they purchase orders, purchase order count, sales, the number of municipalities that processed orders, buyers, and the number of registered communities. So you can see from FY 2015 through FY 2018, just really dramatic growth and continuous improvement. Another slice on some of the data. So public bids, so that's another very important aspect of our business if I didn't touch upon that. So in addition to having access to state procured contracts, ComBuys also provides that, that place where public agencies and municipalities can post their bidding opportunities. And you can see, you know, FY 2015, fewer than 200 bids were posted, and, you know, fast forward a few years and we're over 5,000 and growing. So again, really nice incremental improvement year over year. And so this year, this past March, we celebrated our 5th and I guess our birthday, our anniversary, and purchase orders that had been processed using the ComBuys e-procurement system exceeded $2 billion. So that was pretty exciting. Agency-wide data is shown below. So more than $2 billion in purchase orders, more than $58 million back to OSD in terms of an administration fee that we collect from our awarded statewide contract vendors. So that's super important. I'm very happy with that. And again, just continuing, you know, more than 170,000 orders have been processed. So again, it underscores the stability, the accessibility, and just that folks are using it reliably day in and day out. And so the results of the work of the past 5 years, you know, it is our hope and expectation that what municipalities gain from working with local government as well as OSD is that, you know, we do create that opportunity to share best practices, to provide consultative and supportive recommendations. We will look at how they're doing business today and try to identify ways that they can save money, improve efficiencies, things of that nature, as well as to do more business with qualified vendors. And again, just really getting in and understanding what are their challenges, what are their obstacles, and helping them to overcome them one by one. Back to Operational Services Division, again, just the increased membership, to folks continuing to use it, use the system, the resources, the tools. We have this, you know, massive digital library now of public bids, contracts, vendors. It's incredible. So folks are really benefiting from it. The sales growth of our statewide contracts is very exciting, supported always by the leadership of our strategic sourcing team. They do a phenomenal job. As I mentioned earlier, 1,700,000 goods and services solutions, and we're always looking for new opportunities. So they're a busy group. Again, leveraging the buying power that exists across the Commonwealth. We, and I'm sure many of you, have a lot of local, collaborative, regional contracts. You know, our clients have choice of how they procure, whether to use pre-negotiated agreements, et cetera. So just to be able to leverage that buying power and to help save our constituents' money is very exciting. And you know, hopefully overall we're delivering a high rate of service satisfaction, responsiveness, and making sure that we manage everything end to end with professionalism and ease. Here's a little snapshot. So and this is just one little small testimonial, but this happens to be one of my clients, and I liked it particularly because this was an interesting case wherein I had a school business manager that had called me and said, "Hey Trish, I need you to come in. We need to post a bid for some computers." So when I went in, I said, well, did you know that we have an agreement that could perhaps save you time and money, that kind of thing. And he said, oh, but I already started the public bid path. And I said, not a problem. So in this case, what he did was he ran kind of a concurrent evaluation. He conducted his own public bid, and then he also did a solicitation, like a closed solicitation using the state's ITC 47 technology contract. And essentially, this little memo is the results of that comparative. And the net to the community was the whole process, the evaluation, the using of the ITC 47 contract saves this small school district $15,000 in total cost. Well, that's technology. That's a real game changer for a small community. So they were very excited and very, very happy. And that's just like one little example that I could share with you anecdotally, but the work is important, and the benefits certainly are there. Again, in the spirit of qualitative results, so just consistent positive feedback from local government officials after our meetings and trainings, as well as those cross-referencing. If you do solid work in one community, all of a sudden your phone is ringing for the other communities that want to get on board. So other neighboring towns want to have access to and be educated and informed about engaging with OSD and the Combine solution. And again, we are a reliable connection between state and local government and purchasing associations. Visibility, availability, and responsiveness, again, always working hard on behalf of our clients' interests. And just awareness raising that, perhaps fewer public bids need to be conducted when there may indeed be a great contract that's already been negotiated for you and available to you. The little screenshots, so what I do for my clients, as well as after the whole thing is done, I'll deliver back to whether it's the school business manager, the town mayor, the town administrator, kind of the project plan with all of the deliverables, the timeline. So in one place, it just becomes a nice little take back to the community to show and demonstrate the value of the initiative, et cetera. So that's been very helpful. And again, kind of some of the points that I've tried to already make is that fewer costly procurements when our communities are choosing to leverage our agreements. And again, 1,200 companies on contract, et cetera. And most importantly, the state has a deep commitment both to small, local, and diverse businesses, as well as to the environment. So it's amazing when you look at many of our contracts, just those commitments are woven throughout, whether you're looking at one of our vehicles contracts and, you have hybrids, you have electric, you have alternative fuel solutions, you have, small and local, when everybody's working in the Commonwealth, it's terrific. It's inclusive, and we want to actively reach out, engage, and, be accessible to all. Incremental value in our procurements. So when we procure for an agreement, we do it based upon overall value, as you all well know. So there'll be incremental benefits by way of perhaps additional services, discounts, trainings, things of that nature. So pretty amazing. And again, using digitally recording all of your state contract purchases and bidding activity through Combine ensures, again, greater transparency. The efficiency of the system will allow solicitation to multiple vendors simultaneously. The awarding, the streamlining, it's just very, very efficient. And as I mentioned previously, strategic sourcing team does a remarkable job, constantly seeking innovative, environmentally aware, and extensive contract solutions for our clients. And so local governments, this is myself and my colleagues, maybe a few of them are on the call today, but this is us. We were out at Holy Cross College in Worcester, Massachusetts about 6 months ago, and the governor was speaking, and so he came over and said hello to us. So we definitely, we try to engage our procurement officials where they live. So we are members of the organizations that they are. So we maintain memberships at MASPO, MAPO, and MMA, which are highly influential purchasing groups in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And again, it's just, bringing down some of those walls that might exist, or maybe some skepticism that might exist, and developing those relationships that are trusting and, mutually beneficial. We tend to, as a result of membership in these things, we tend to be asked to speak at a lot of regional conferences and events, so that's a lot of fun. The team was recognized back in 2017 by the governor for outstanding performance, which we appreciated. And of course, this fine group, back in 2018, we were a George Cronin finalist for procurement excellence. So very, very exciting. Okay, so that's it. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Patricia. That was great. Actually, we do have several questions, so I'm just going to go in the order that I received them. So the first question is, what were local government enablement managers doing before the LGE team was established?
Oh, that is a great question. So I think I speak correctly for my colleagues. We all began, maybe I don't want to step back. So I can speak for myself, certainly. So I came from the private sector, technology, sales, and marketing. My colleague, Jennifer, came from the private sector as a professional trainer, and she joined OSD as a trainer. So she started her work with OSD as an application, software trainer, if you will. And Jackie also, I believe, had both marketing as well as a training background prior to joining OSD. And I believe Jackie has the longest tenure, which was a year prior to 2014. And I think Eric, a similar timeline, our manager. So we all came into it, pretty new, if you will. And the nice thing is there's been great stability in the team. It's the same for, cast of characters doing this highly important work for the past 5 years, and we're thrilled to be doing it. But that's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Okay, great. The next question is, this is a good question too. What would you recommend as a first step if we wanted to initiate a similar local government enablement team in our office?
Oh, that is a good question. So now I feel woefully inferior representing a 100-person organization. So what I can say is that definitely, feel free to reach back to me personally, or anybody within leadership at OSD, some of whom may be on this call as well, because we're delighted to share our story and help help advise or just share our work. Much of the work that was done to establish local government, it predated my service, so I really can't speak to all of the groundwork that had to go in. But, it's common sense to say, as I tried to mention early on, is that within the Commonwealth Operational Services Division, we have 10 strategic teams. We have, very deeply committed people, all with different interests, different constituencies, but, ultimately with the same goal, of course, which is public service. So in order to affect a local government outreach and things like that, I definitely would feel that you would need, you could benefit from maybe speaking to some folks here at the Commonwealth, and I'd be happy to, coordinate, direct, that kind of thing. But short of anything specific by way of a blueprint for a roadmap, I'm sorry, I can't be that specific, but definitely that's encouraging that at least in some part what we've shared with you by way of our example might inspire each of you to consider, the applicability to your own states, et cetera. So thank you. That's a great question. Please reach back afterwards.
Okay, great. Next question is, how many trainings does each manager typically do in a month, or does it depend on the need?
Oh, that's a great question. So you should ask my colleague Jackie Abbott, who's onboarding the trial court of Massachusetts. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're training maybe 600 users, and the schedule is, 4 days a week. And I think it's been at least 2 months as far as I know. So that is a really good question. typically, by way of a training experience in an average community. So by average, I mean it could be a city or a town. On average, maybe 20 people that have purchasing responsibility. Ordinarily, so how the process works, we go in initially, we do some initial consultation. We have a roadmap that we work with the clients, and we call it a needs assessment to identify and understand, how do you do business today? And it's a series of questions, and it really gives us a nice profile into the process, the systems, the obstacles, the areas where they'd like to see improvement, things like that. Then we will return with a trainer to do the system administration piece. We will determine who's doing the buying today, who's pressing the buttons today, who's ordering online, who's calling, phoning, faxing, and emailing vendors. Those are the people that we want to provide an orientation and awareness. Who's posting public bids within your organization? Do they even know that statewide contracts exist for them that will help them to fulfill their requirements under the law? So we'll go in and we'll determine who should have access to the system and tools, and who will be part of our training program. So that's typically a 3 to 4 hour system setup in a very typical, small to medium-sized community, 20 buyers. Then we will return after a few additional steps, consultative steps are taken. The LGE representative with a member of our professional training team from Boston will go on site. The training will take the form of a classroom style, hands-on. So it's not necessarily seminar, and they're not watching you, they're doing it hands-on. And we will take them through a 3 hour class of basic navigation, basic basic search, basic how do I process this kind of order, how do I locate vendors, how do I read a contract user guide, really educating, informing, etc. But procurement is such a complex arena that we felt that 3 hours, people kind of hit a wall after 3 hours. It's a lot of information, and that's essentially, at least in the LGE mode, we then return and do departmental trainings, one-on-one trainings, things like that. So to answer the question, the training administratively can be 3 to 6 hours to get everything set up in the system, so that when your buyer logs into the procurement tool, they see their name, their proper bill to ship to information, they see their historic records, they have everything they need to be successful at their job. The end user training, it really is an initial classroom style training on site, convenient for the buyer, but then we will return, usually we return the first 3 months. If you don't have them, if you haven't changed the behavior, and if you haven't gotten them to the point where they're using statewide contract combis as their first source, it's tough. And so that first 3 months is critical to making sure. And as I mentioned early in the presentation, having management support and backing is critical, because you can go in and train, and they can understand conceptually and intellectually how things are supposed to be and why it's a good idea, et cetera, et cetera. But if they go back to their desk and resume business as usual without consequence, or without anyone within their organization kind of calling them to account, it's a pretty tough, it's a pretty tough road. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. So for the average buyer, it's probably, a 3 hour classroom training, and then optional one-on-ones. With that first 3 months after following training, I feel is the most critical. And then it becomes quarterly check-ins with chief procurement officers, town administrators, sharing results, looking for opportunities, what's coming up by way of next fiscal year, your budgets, how can we help? We have no vested interest in any of this, other than to clear a path for, options and alternatives, and, helping our communities save money and be more efficient with their spending. I hope that helps.
That's great. And it sounds like you all are a huge support system for them too.
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendous. And I think that the best thing, just, anecdotally, when you have communities that had an initial degree of skepticism, that maintained their own contracts, if you will, and in the past 5 years, when you see a number of them start to take down their own contracts or not renew them in option or in favor of the state procured agreement, that's really high praise. It's like, it just is very, very rewarding, of course.
All right. So the next question is, it says, forgive me if I missed this part, but what kind of cost savings has been seen with local governments?
Okay, that's great. So the cost savings can be seen in a number of different ways. First and foremost, the contracts themselves. So we are leveraging for best value, and we're leveraging the buying power of the Commonwealth. So our prices typically are going to outshine any local or regional collaborative agreement that may have 20 communities that have put together their own little contract. So our contracts have super aggressive pricing from qualified, best-in-class vendors that are thoroughly vetted. The time saving, so the money savings is often in the price as well as the incremental value the contracts offer. Give you a quick example. So in our vehicles contract, there may be incremental value, not just hundreds of models of vehicles from dozens of vendors. There may be incremental value seen in terms of, well, the vehicles are delivered completely upfitted to your specification. They arrive registered, plates front and back, 3 sets of keys, and a tank of gas. So the vehicle is ready to be deployed into your community. So that is a savings of both time and money. Those additional benefits have, you could assign a monetary value to them. The mere fact that you don't have to necessarily conduct your own procurement to satisfy Commonwealth law for goods and services. So that's going to save you time. A typical procurement, when a community does their own, it could be anywhere from 3, 6, 7 weeks from end to end. Whereas if you just follow a contract, we've already done that piece of it for you. For us, it can take up to maybe 6 months to develop a contract. So we're going to save you time and expense associated with advertising and bid management and vendor evaluation and, and on and on. And then the digital piece of it, so the shared access to community information. If I'm a buyer in the city of Lawrence, I not only can see my work, but if I'm a chief procurement officer in the city of Lawrence and I happen to, I want to see what's going on at Public Works, I actually have view into their documents as well. So the application is specific to the community, but it's a nice shared resource in terms of not having to hunt paperwork down. It's on Mary's desk. It's over in that filing cabinet. Who knows? So it's centralized record keeping, transparency to how the decisions are being made. So the money, the savings, they can be seen both by way of effort, by way of time and resources. Printing, you don't have to print anything in Combis unless you absolutely need to. It's there for the viewing, if you will. So I hope that answers your question. So that the contracts are negotiated for exceptional value and efficiency of automation.
Okay. All right. So the next question is, how was training established and what training materials are being used?
Oh yeah. So oh gosh, I hope I don't misrepresent this. So we have a training team, and I don't have my numbers firm, but I feel as though we probably have maybe 10 to 12 full-time professional. These are educators, trainers, system specialists, software application specialists that deliver classroom-style training across the Commonwealth. We also have an extensive portfolio of webinars, of all types of resources on our public website. We have job aids, so that's our terminology for essentially written instructions. So a buyer or a vendor can find comprehensive written instructions on how to do certain tasks. So we will do live webinars. We also have YouTube videos. We have written instructions, all that have been developed and customized for the Combis platform. Combis, as you may or may not be aware, so it is not a proprietary package. It's a package that we have kind of tailored to our use. In the broad marketplace, and many of you may already be using it, or some of you may be using it, it is known as BuySpeed. We've just rebranded it as Combis for, recognition back to the Commonwealth of Mass.
All right. Next question. If updates are added to the software, how do you inform the users?
Oh, that's great. So a number of different ways. And we've got a crack marketing team there on it. Through our CRM, we can electronically message out to thousands of registered users, new information when they first log in at any given point. On their homepage, there'll be a little message center, if you will, like news and information, a little flash. Even before they log in, if it's important enough, there'll be like a red banner on our combis.com landing page that might tell you, that the help desk is closed for the Labor Day weekend, or whatever. So there's lots of ways that we communicate that messaging to our clients in a very public and transparent way. But most of them are digitally and electronically. We, of course, LGE, we're out in the field 4 days a week, so we, verbally sharing, telling, making sure our clients are kept up to date on all significant things that could affect them. Thank you for the question. That was great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we have a lot of good questions today. The next question is, how did you start your outreach to the local governments? For example, county by county, city by city?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And, it's not unlike any other startup organization that, you may be familiar with in the private sector. Sometimes when you kind of think who your target audience might be or who might be the most receptive, that first year, I will tell you, it was such a significant learning process. What we quickly learned is that this was a highly independent audience. These are professionals. These people have been, running their city and town business for many, many years. And as I said, they were fairly skeptical or whatever until you establish some trust, et cetera. And I think initially, I don't want to be inappropriate here, but sometimes I'll give you an example. So in a city in Massachusetts, most cities have a dedicated purchasing department. Oftentimes it could have a half a dozen people with different specialists or whatever, and a chief procurement officer. But that's not the case in towns. Towns purchasing, chief procurement responsibilities typically tend to go to somebody. Maybe it's the assistant town manager. Maybe it's the finance director. Maybe it's the school business manager in the case of schools. So oftentimes procurement became one of many responsibilities for people. And honestly, when you could come in and learn a little bit about them, and as they're sharing, think, how are the ways that we can help them? How can we take, sort of the proverbial, what keeps you up at night? And then think, what can I do to help this community be more efficient, more transparent, not have to, go through the rigors of their own procurement. And so to that extent, we had kind of a groundswelling of communities that you kind of didn't expect would, I'll give you an example. So one of our earliest adopters was the town of Nantucket. And so for anybody outside of the Commonwealth, you might say, oh, who's Nantucket? Oh, big deal. Okay, they're an island. So by virtue of the fact that they're an island, they had so many issues trying to have vendors respond to them, excessive shipping charges. You can imagine, seasonal fluctuation because it was like a tourist kind of community. They had a boatload of challenges. Well, they went all in and all in deep with Combis because all of a sudden they had solutions. They had vendors that had committed to support across the Commonwealth, and that would include the island of Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and different things like that. So I guess to answer the question directly, initially I would have loved to have said, yes, these half a dozen cities, they should be a likely candidate for what we do. But at its core, we had to respond to and deliver high value to those communities maybe that had the greatest challenges, that maybe they could rely on our professionalism, our professional contract management, our LGE experience to, work with their buying community. Again, this combines the adoption of, of our proposition. It could not be another burden on them. We had to take the responsibility end to end. So recognizing that not everybody fit down a narrow path, if you will, we followed a script, but we also were fluid and flexible, and we listened as much as, we listened twice as much as we spoke, and really tried to deliver high value, high impact solutions. And I think the numbers bear out. The good news is we were kind of laughing about this internally, that we almost, I feel as though we're still responding to people that want our help. So we haven't had to do a whole lot of outreach, if you will, because 351 cities and towns, 3 of us, kind of the math is not in our favor. So in any case, yeah, that is a terrific question. But I guess just to remain open and receptive and, deliver high impact, and you got to show up for it every day. Thank you.
All right. So I think this is going to be our last question, and that is, how are approval workflows handled, especially across a multitude of governmental organizations?
Oh, that is a great question. So the nice thing about the procurement system that we use, which is Conbuy, is that those workflows are absolutely seamless and they work like a champion, but it does require that you really go in early and do a deep dive and understand how does it work today. So they are customizable. So whether you're a small town and you just have one approval path, or you are a trial court and certain purchases may have to be viewed by 4 different people before the order is released and processed. So flexible, customizable, and it's fantastic because the system accommodates. You can adjust those approval paths based on a purchasing amount. So for example, if I'm a DPW department, I may have departmental authority to make purchases up to $1,000. I can approve those requisitions internally. The system releases electronically vendor purchase orders, and the order is gone. So no phoning, faxing, and emailing. If I could also impose an approval path with any number of steps that would require, once the purchase exceeded $1,000, it had to go to the department head, and that document moves along electronically. It moves along both, the initiator will always know the status of their document, as well as those that are on the approval path themselves. They will receive an email alerting them, hey, there's a document that you need to review and approve. And they actually have the option to review it and say yes. If they approve it, it moves on to a purchase order electronically and it is released to the vendor. They also can return it to the return it to the initiator for modification. They may say there's no purchase order here, or they may have some qualifying questions, but those approval paths are customizable. They can be customized by department, by organization, multiple layers. Additionally, I mentioned that they can be revenue-based approval paths. They also can be commodity-based. So think of this: if you have a purchase, the system, will allow you to process your purchasing to a certain degree. But if you're purchasing a vehicle, if you're purchasing technology, all of a sudden, based on a commodity code, that document will be routed to, an IT director, to a transportation director or whatever. So customizable, flexible. And the best thing about all of this is, and I probably didn't make this point, is that there's no cost to the community to participate for these services, for the trainings, for the consultation, none of it. So it's all to their benefit should they choose to partner and leverage the resources. So I hope that answers that question. So they definitely can be accommodated multiple levels, departmental, organizationally. Again, very, very tailored, very specific to the community.
All right. Well, that concludes our Q&A for the webinar today. That was a great presentation, great questions, great discussion. I appreciate everybody's time today. Patricia, I most definitely appreciate your time and insight and knowledge and sharing your state's winning submissions. And that is about all we have for today. So thank you all so much, and you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone.